Here we are. Here we are, and it's Thursday. It's Thursday. Hello there. I'm EnviroBoy. This is my channel, and today I want to do some writing with you. Who saw that coming? Surprise ending. No, not a surprise at all. We do this. We do this like literally every day that I stream. But you know, hope everyone out there is having a good day. We'll give it a minute or two, see if anyone trickles in for the beginning of the stream here. I'm trying to learn. Yeah, anyone watching my channel, especially in these early moments, I'm trying to like learn a little bit more about like what the different tricks are for, you know, capturing videos and streams and all that kind of stuff. I have zero training whatsoever in like video production, you know, presentation, being a figurehead, you know, like trying to be someone who is on camera, you know, like I never did theater or anything like that. So I have literally no experience or understanding of how to do any of this. I'm just kind of like learning it as I go. And so I'm trying to understand a lot of it, and I think one of the things, you know, and it's like in my methodology, and this is something that has served me in every facet of my life, so far anyway, is to recognize and admit to myself when I don't know what on earth I'm doing, but to try it and to try to do it as like professionally, you know, if that word's applicable in the scenario, to try something and just do it as professionally as I can, even with whatever limited supplies, experience, understanding, knowledge, whatever, even with like whatever limitations I have, try to do whatever I'm doing as professionally as possible. Because what I find is that if I approach things that way, I will accidentally learn things just by paying attention and trying to learn and trying to do things better. It makes me more attentive to what I'm doing. It makes me more attentive to what others are doing. It makes me more receptive to learning things, because a professional is always trying to learn and do better. And that's not to say that I want to turn this into my profession. I love doing this and I love my audience, but also you guys are fickle. You can never trust an audience to always be there, right? But that's like one of the things I've learned through all this process. So I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling here to take up time. But yeah, like that's kind of been my journey so far in this stream. And I guess the reason I'm pointing it out is because I know that generally speaking, successful streamers tend to give a bit of a buffer. They start off and they just kind of chit-chat about stuff, and then they dive into whatever the stream is going to be about. So that way, if you do have an audience that is interested in watching you and seeing what you're up to, you give them a little bit of time to come in so they don't have to be there at the exact moment that you start. So that's what I'm doing, even though I have a minimal audience, because I'm just a nobody scrub who's trying to make this up as he goes. And, you know, I'm comfortable in that position, truthfully. But yeah, so it's like, you know, if I want to try and do this in a way that at least comes across as kind of professional, better than complete and utter amateur who's not even trying, right? If I want to at least elevate myself above that level, then I should try to do some of these things. Hey, Chocolate Muffin Queen, how's it going? See, it's working already. It's working already. I with 4-minute buffer, and we already have someone here who hasn't missed any of the stream because I finally have, you know, it took me like, how long have I been streaming? Like, I started streaming kind of at the beginning of this year, really, and I was, boy, oh boy, was it haphazard at that time. But I started doing this, I don't know, like 6-7 months ago. It took me 6 months, but I learned something. And god damn it if it didn't pay off, kind of. So, you know, here we are. And so, yeah, I don't know, I guess thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Just trying to, oh, thanks, I appreciate the encouragement. It, I don't know, like I say, I'm like, the good news for me in trying to stream is I do not have my ability to pay my bills tied up in it, nor do I really have any of my ego tied up in it. Hey, Wicked Smart Dragon, look at that. Look at that. 2 people have come in and didn't miss any part of my stream, really, or at least any valuable part of it, because I finally figured out to put a bit of a buffer between hitting that start button and then actually doing stuff on it. Look at that. Look at that. But no, the good news is I'm totally willing to sit here and talk about how little I know about what I'm doing. Because, like I say, one, I have no income tied up in this, which is a wonderful situation to be in, right? So it's like I can just kind of experiment and do whatever I want, and I think that makes me come off as a bit more genuine, because I'm not trying to like appease any sort of algorithm or whatever the hot button words are these days. And the other thing that's beautiful about it is I don't have any ego tied up in this. I recognize that I'm a complete amateur and a complete joke to just about everyone and everything that I do in my life. And you know what? I just find it's easier to be in on the joke rather than try to fight it. Oh yeah, I know. You're right. I did forget to do that today. I was fiddling with so another thing that I learned, and I actually learned this from a buddy of mine who does professional video production and everything. One thing I learned that he was saying I ought to be doing is like doing more stuff involved with like putting up clips, because I've got that YouTube channel, but all I do is I put up the VODs, and no one fucking watches the VODs because they're disorganized. No one knows what the hell they are. If they're interested in that long form thing, they're just going to come here on Twitch, you know, and I put them up there, but I don't do anything with them. And he was saying it doesn't have to be a time-consuming thing. All I can do is if I actually keep the recordings rather than just trusting Twitch and YouTube to handle my recordings, right? If I actually record them and at least temporarily put them on my own PC, then I can pull out little 5-minute clips of something amusing that happened and put it on my YouTube channel. And suddenly that will get more clicks and stuff. And, you know, here I go. Now I am trying to appease the algorithm and stuff like that. But I guess it's for me, it's more about trying to just learn different ways to approach things. But I digress. The reason I bring that up is because I was sitting there looking at some different settings with video recording and everything that I could use on my computer through my capture system and everything. And suddenly I realized I was like 15 minutes late. I was like, oh damn, I should probably actually be streaming here. Like, it doesn't do that much good to try and have some sort of like it doesn't do anyone any good for me to have all these ideas about what to do with my stream if I don't actually stream. So, anywho, here we are, and I don't know, like what? See, now here's what the question is: how long is a good buffer? Should I do 5 minutes, in which case, mission accomplished? Should I do 10 minutes, in which case, like, oh crap, now I gotta try and be amusing and share more anecdotes for like another 2.5 minutes? And boy, oh boy, now that he's acknowledged it, it's going to be even more awkward, because now we know exactly what he's doing. He's just trying to fill up space, and no one wants that. But here we are. Oh boy, I don't know. See, now things are getting really meta, where I'm like analyzing the analysis, and we've completely lost track of anything that we're trying to actually accomplish today. I don't know. Hell, I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, we're at 8 minutes. You do a 5-minute buffer? Okay, fair enough. 5-minute buffer. I feel like 5 minutes is probably sufficient, because that gives anyone who's like paying attention and is actually trying to get there at the beginning, it gives them time to like catch up and get in there. And then yeah, so like 10 minutes is too long. Yeah, exactly. That's fair. And it's like, because yeah, 10 minutes at that point in time, it's like, yeah, you know, if anyone's going to be here at the start, they're already kind of in. And now I'm just wasting your time, which you guys are very generous and still sitting here. But the good news is I don't even necessarily have to make the decision right here and right now, because now doing the analysis on the minutes has managed to kill another minute, and we're basically at rounding error 10 minutes. So let's go ahead and actually do some stuff. Look at that. I did it. And I'm going to pretend that was all completely on purpose, and that I managed to hustle you guys into watching even more of my ramblings. Like, has become one of my favorite things to say. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. 5 minutes? Okay, 5 minutes seems to be the consensus. The two of you are clearly the most dedicated people today to me, so maybe I should just take your advice, and we'll just start working on 5 minutes, and if anything ever changes, then we'll do that. But I appreciate the advice, because, like I opened up saying, this is the dirty little secret. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm making this up. I have zero experience in like video production, streaming, anything other than me just trying it. I'm just trying it, and it's fun. So here I am. Anywho, what did we work on last time? Last time we finished up our first, the first half of our dungeon, of our little dungeon, which is actually our mountain pass for our players. And I actually kind of want to just take a second to sort of recap it, what we've done, because I feel like I tend to, yay, we finished it, on to the next thing. But maybe a recap would be kind of a helpful thing to provide, because then we can sort of take stock of what we've done already, and we can see how it went from nothing to everything that we already have, right? Because we started off, let me get ourselves a couple half screeners going on here, so we can look at our notes and stuff while we're going. Because we started off, remember, and actually the fun thing about it with halfway through, we started off with something that looked kind of like this, right? It was just this blank nothing, and it wasn't hardly anything. And we've resulted in this, and not just in terms of looks, but we've added a whole lot of detail there. So, what'd you got? You started your campaign last Saturday. Good first session. Lots of sass between the parties so far. That's expected. That's expected. Monk seduced the married bartender. Of course. Okay. Interesting that a monk would choose to do that. Must be a not a super duper pious monastery then. Not a very restrictive one. But that's awesome. I'm glad it started, and I'm glad it went well. But yeah, no, sass. The thing is, so here's a little commentary we can add about this. Criminal Shadow Monk. Okay, yeah, there you go. That explains it. Kind of like that immediately makes me think of the like Ra's al Ghul and all that. Like, that's immediately what it makes me think of. It makes me think of Batman. Which, like, okay, all right, I can see that. Like, there's still a lot of restrictions there, but also not. But at any rate, like, it's actually a good point to bring up with, like, the whole, like, a party that has a lot of sass and immediately tries to do that. Because I feel like that is how every actual, like, real-life campaign that people play, you know, and lead their friends through and stuff like that, it kind of goes that way. There's lots of sass, lots of people just trying to, like, test the boundaries of what they're allowed to do, and so they'll do things like try and roll the deuce and all that kind of stuff. And it's really funny because I feel like sometimes, especially when you have new players, that ends up almost feeling kind of disappointing, because what do new players do a lot of times, if they're not already a huge nerd and don't already know how these types of discussions and nerd sessions with friends go, they're expecting something a lot like what they hear in different podcasts and stuff. And what I think happens is a well-done D&D podcast feels like friends just playing D&D. But what people don't realize is it's friends producing a show. So it's not necessarily scripted, but it's a lot more focused than what ends up happening between real people. So you end up with real people who do a lot of crazy things for the sake of trying to get yucks out of each other. That's how you end up with, like, a really sassy group of players and everything. And so, I don't know. No one asked for that particular TED Talk that I just gave, but it's an interesting point. And I think it's worth noting. You know, it's one of those things that's worth reiterating a lot, because as someone who has a lot of experience in D&D these days, I come to expect that, and that's what I love about it, and that's what differentiates my games from being able to just watch a podcast, right? If I wanted to be and produce my own podcast, then I would do that rather than just playing with my friends. So I don't know. It's just something worth saying, because I guess really what I'm getting at here is I love that story, because that sounds like every super awesome fun campaign that I'm ever part of for a first session anyway. So you've got a werewolf girl player, but of course she's hiding the fact that she's a werewolf naturally. Yep. Smelling everyone to know their scent. Okay. So everyone had to describe what they smell like. I appreciate the fact that kind of offers up the possibility for the other players to clue into something funky is going on here, right? Like, I think that's kind of fun. It's fun to have players or characters that have little secrets like that. But that's like, it sounds like your player has the right idea about it. You have to drop hints about what that secret is. Otherwise, it's not fun, right? Because it's not actually part of the game. But if you make it part of the game so that the other characters can try and figure it out, that makes it really fun. So it sounds like you've got a pretty solid group going, or at least as far as you can tell from a first session. It sounds like it was a fun, interesting first session. It sounds like it wasn't a boring session of people being shy and uncomfortable with their characters, which I think is a really good sign for a campaign. Not to say that shy players don't end up being some of the best players in the world, but I think when you start off with people willing to play their characters, that's a good way to make sure that you guys kind of dive into a good campaign early on. And it's a good way to get people sucked into the campaign, right? Because like as a DM, you have to provide a good game, but if your players aren't boisterous and gregarious about getting into it, then it'll kind of have a failure to launch situation. So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate that. It sounds like you got a really good group, and hopefully it continues to be that way. But yeah, so we finished off, like I say, doing our first level of the dungeon, which different layout obviously, but it looked kind of like this when we started. And by the end of it, we have this. And what I think is really fun, and one of the reasons why I want to recap this is because I'm really happy with how a lot of this ended up coming out. Because I wasn't, to be perfectly honest, when I started making this dungeon, I gotta keep doing the air quotes for the dungeon. Oh shoot, you got more stuff. Hold on, I want to see this. Before we lose the thread of your campaign completely, I want to hear it. Werewolf, Trickery Cleric, Asmar Necromancy Wizard, Tabaxi Beast Barbarian, High Elf Hexblade Warlock, and Aarakocra Shadow Monk. That is such a cool group of characters. There's so much. I don't even know the right word. Like diversity, yes, but like more like just so much I don't even know what I'm trying to say about it. It's just like I like that there's a whole lot of experimentation. Maybe is what I'm going for. There's a whole lot of experimentation with classes and races and all that kind of stuff. So it sounds like a solid group. It sounds like a solid group for sure. But yeah, so working on this dungeon, when I first started, I was oh, you're welcome. No problem at all. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. But yeah, when I started this, I was, to be perfectly honest, I wasn't quite sure how I was going to make this an interesting and compelling dungeon, because it is just starting off as an open air thing, right? I mean, we flavor it to look a bit kind of like some cliffs and stony passes and stuff like that, right? Because we're doing foothills of a mountain for this dungeon, right? But like by being an open air thing, you lose some of the classic tools that are available to you when you're doing an interior building evil lair type of dungeon, right? You don't have your natural blockades of doors and everything like that, which means you don't have your natural ability to block and force players to investigate and explore by having locked doors and stuff like that. It takes away a lot of tools. And so I wasn't quite sure if I was going to be able to find a way to make this an interesting, compelling dungeon for players. But I think we've managed to succeed, right? Because what we've kind of ended up doing is, while there are certainly plenty of battles and stuff, we've kind of we found a way to use the basic concept of door, key, map, like these basic concepts, and we found some unique creative ways to present them in this dungeon, right? Our doors are blocked pathways and or just like elevated plateaus that require climbing, right? So it's like there's an explicitly locked door, but there's still a barrier that prevents players from getting certain items or going to certain locations, right? And it still kind of serves that purpose, right? Because if they don't have the key, they could still try to lockpick, right? And so they can still pass it without a key. And that's kind of the situation we put in here. Like when we have those elevated plateaus, right? The locked door is the cliff that they have to climb. The key is the grappling hooks that we've kind of scattered around this area. And picking the lock is just free soloing that crap and, you know, being Alex Honnold about it and doing it anyway, even without the tools, right? So it's like we've still kind of achieved that same effect. And what's really cool about that is, for the players, from the player perspective, that's going to give them a fun, challenging dungeon that isn't going to feel like, all right, here we go again into the wizard's tower or whatever, right? Like we've managed to offer up some variety without having to force players to imagine anything different, right? Like we've offered up that variety while still giving them the same basic thought processes that they might use in another dungeon. They still kind of have that basic problem solving thing, right? We've given them puzzles and traps and stuff like that. So I'm really pleased with how this first half is come together, and I'm excited about doing the second half because I think we can largely use a lot of those same things without it feeling too stagnant, because it's all part of the same dungeon. The intent is this will just feel like a larger dungeon without it feeling like one of the challenges, and we'll see this later on when you're doing larger dungeons, right? Because some of my dungeons, once we get towards the end of this campaign, are going to be quite mega dungeon in nature. One of the tough things about doing that is you run the risk of a single dungeon getting boring, so you have to offer variation within the dungeon, which there are ways to do that, and we'll kind of get into that once we get to those points. But this early on, when you just have a dungeon this size, it's still small enough that players will probably not feel it getting too stale to them. So I'm really enthusiastic about this dungeon, and I'm excited to do our second level. So maybe we ought to just go ahead and start doing it, huh? Just rather than sitting here blabbering about everything. Let's see. Oh, you know what? I am on the wrong thing here. That is for my other group. It's the stuff that I strategically decided not to stream because I know some of my players do like to listen to podcasts and watch Twitch streams, and so if they ever decide to cheat and try and come onto my stream, they haven't yet. But if they ever do, I don't want them to find the secrets, so I don't stream the making of their stuff. I do that all on my own time. Good news is it goes a lot quicker because I don't talk about all of it as I'm doing it. But that's a entirely different conversation, and really not a concern at all because doing different things with different stuff. So let's do our second level of this dungeon. Last time we did divvy out where everything is going to be, and we had started to kind of think about, the one thing that I do want to do for offering variation is I don't want the keys and locked doors to be the same, right? Because we just talked about, the keys and the locked doors, the doors were like the cliffs that they had to climb, and the keys were climbing equipment. And I want to change that a little bit in this second layer, just because I think it would feel a little bland if the key were the same thing, right? Imagine being in a dungeon and you find one key and that unlocks every door, right? In some ways that would feel convenient, but if you find that key on the first, in the first room, then suddenly a lot of the challenge and the exploration of that dungeon is kind of wiped out because you no longer have that barrier. And I don't want it to feel that way for this second level of dungeon. So I want to keep it thematic, but I want to change things a little bit. And the idea that I had was to make it so that the boss key, right? Because I also like to have that kind of mechanic in there where there's regular keys to open up some doors to get items, but then then access to like the final area, being the boss room or whatever, access to that requiring a special key. So that way it's like you use the regular keys to find things, but then you have to find the super important special key to get there. I like adding that mechanic in, and the idea I had is if the first layer or the first set of rooms motif being climbing through these mountainous passes and these hills, I thought it'd be kind of fun to then go the other direction with it and have tunneling be the way through this second set of pathways and everything. So the idea I had, and the idea has kind of grown on me, and I think I'm going to stick with it, is that the key is going to be a scroll of Move Earth, so that there's going to be a path or a passage that's been blocked by falling stone or dirt or something like that, like a small tunnel or something perhaps. And they start going through that tunnel or going through the pass, and suddenly it's blocked. If they have that scroll, then they have an easy way to move it. It fudges the way the spell works a little bit because the spell has limits on how much dirt it can use, but you can, especially when you're just playing with your friends and not doing an Adventure League type of thing, you can kind of fudge that stuff a little bit. And I personally, for the sake of adding flavor and themes, I fudge things all the time. That's my personal approach. So the scroll of Move Earth might not be satisfying to everyone, but I like the idea, so I'm gonna do it because this is my stream and I can do what I want. Sorry, I got a little arrogant there. It's my apologies. But that's kind of the idea that I had, and it's an idea that I like and continues to grow on me. So then the other idea, then the problem is we still need to think of our standard keys, right? And for those, I was thinking we could probably do something like just do pickaxes, right? So maybe there's a small, there's a smaller barrier, like a bit of a tunnel that's like you can kind of see through it, but there's enough stones that you can't squeeze through, so that you've got the pickaxe to try and like break things up, right? You can do a pickaxe or a shovel or something like that. And the idea being that if the players get the scroll of Move Earth and use it elsewhere, but they still find the shovel and the pickaxe or whatever, then they can have an easier time digging through the thicker amount of blockade that would get them to the boss room and stuff like that. It's a little flimsy, a little hand-wavy, but I think it serves the purpose, and that purpose being there are barriers, and we provide them some tools they can use on top of whatever their imagination lets them have, right? Because like ultimately that's kind of what a key is, right? Is it's a way to make it so that you don't have to necessarily, or rather you have the tools that you need to get to the other side, not because it would be impossible without that, but because having the right tool makes the job easier, right? Because a player can still pick a lock, and I try to always do that unless I have a really good reason to magically blockade them from getting into a room until the time is right, and so I think it still serves the purpose to do it that way. So it's flimsy, and it's really stretching even the loosest definition of a key that way, but I think it'll work. I think it'll work, because the other thing to think about it too is when you're actually playing, when you're kind of in the thick of it with your players, right? They're not going to be sitting there over analyzing exactly like, could you have made it better for us by doing a slightly different version of a key? No, they're going to say, oh, we have this pickaxe. My character uses that to try and dig out some of the rocks. And then they go with it, right? They're just going to put two and two together. They're going to go through it. And if it's not the best idea, what'll happen is they'll be like, oh, cool. All right, well, we had that. And they'll move on, and that won't be one of the stories they tell about the campaign. But that's no problem, because there'll be other stories about it. So it's like, I don't know. I'm probably over-explaining it, and no one asked. But it's just, I think it's worth pointing out that not everything has to be perfect, and not everything has to always make 100% logical sense, so long as there is a logic to it that holds within the world, the confines of the world that you're making. It'll serve the purpose, and it'll accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. In this case, rocks being a barrier, and there are existing different types of tools that players can use to get past that barrier. So I'm going to stick with that idea here, and I think that's what we'll do. We'll one of the keys here, we'll just put the note here. Key, we'll put pickaxe, and this one we're going to say the key is a shovel, right? And the other thing about it too is it kind of fits the theme. We're talking about sort of a very earthy, stony, rock-laden environment, and so we're talking about either climbing over the rocks or digging through them and all that kind of stuff. What do you got? How do you find a menu for a tavern with prices? Are you talking like a real-world example that you could use, or how does one go about having that in your game? I guess ultimately you're probably asking about it in the game, but it's like, so I guess what I can just do is I can explain what I do for going about my taverns and stores and stuff in general. I have found online a lot of people, if you just kind of Google D&D tavern prices and stuff like that, a lot of people have kind of made their own lists. I will a lot of times use those lists to get ideas of what types of foods and stuff could be present in a particular tavern. And I keep a few of those lists on handy. It's like a multi-tiered step thing that I do for achieving menus and just like store inventories and stuff in general. I have a set of, and I think I have them in here maybe. I have a few examples. You can see a few examples of stuff in here. There's a lot of different ones that I have. But I kind of have like a template example list that has like everything possible. And this is for stuff that you can't just find as in like a rules as written list that exists like in the Dungeon Master's Handbook or whatever, right? I've found and sort of compiled big massive lists of what could exist in there, and usually what I'll do is I'll scour that list to find thematic stuff. So like if it's a tavern that's in a coastal city, I'll have the food be very fish based, things like that. If I'm trying to get a certain aesthetic, I might choose whether or not they have more beers versus liquors or whatever accessible at the keep. So I kind of come up with a list like that. And then what I'll usually do is I'll come up with a few different options for one of 3 price points. And I'll have like your poor man's swill that'll just get you drunk, and if you don't care how it tastes. There's the standard fare, which is like the most common stuff that tastes pretty okay just for a night of unwinding after a hard day of work, getting a couple beers or something like that. That tier of stuff, and then the like really good stuff that'll either get you wasted fast or it'll taste delectable while you're drinking it. All right, I kind of set things up into those 3 tiers. And then based on whatever economy I'm using, because I find that different games will tend to use different scales for the economy, and a lot of that's just because it's really hard to have a consistent economy based on what our brains consider prices should be versus what would make sense in a medieval standpoint. So different people find their different balances for those costs, and then they kind of so based on what I use for my economy, I kind of ascribe a price not to each individual item, but rather the tiers of the different items, and I just sort of do it that way. And doing it that way by having a subset of that big master list makes it so that each tavern might feel a little different, feel a little bit more localized, have their own local specialty and stuff like that. And it helps players kind of think about. It helps them. It helps them feel like they have choice, and it helps the place feel a bit more realistic. And what I can do here, if we go to. No, I don't have anything there. Here we go. So, like, I've kind of done it for some of these, right? You can see with this. Like, this is an example of how I don't have a menu. Let's see here. General store. Yeah, we have all that stuff. I never actually, look at that. Now that I'm realizing, I never actually put just an inn in this city. I didn't think to do that. I should probably do that. I should probably go back and do an inn. But we can look at just... that little side note aside, side note aside, that a side note. Anyway, you can see here, right? I've got kind of the 3 tiers of stuff, right? And there's different things that are in there, so you can kind of roll. I don't know if that helps. I feel like that's not exactly what you're asking, but that's how I go about doing stuff like that. So I don't like to just like try and Google something and find it, and it's hard to find, in a modern day example because things in medieval times are so different. But that's kind of how I go about it, and the way I tend to do prices is based on just sort of a generalized concept of 1 gold is the equivalent of $10, right? So I'll have like, for drinks, I'll have a tier of like, 5 copper or a 50-cent swill of a drink, right? Which is just like, after we made the beer, we soaked the residual dregs from actually making the beer. We drained out the beer, and then we took the dregs and just like threw those in water, so you can have some of that swill. There's probably a little bit of alcohol in it, it's like, we took the grounds of the coffee and we chucked it in there. It's like that level stuff. So it's like 50 cents for a drink. And then I'll have kind of like those general drinks are like $2 drinks, so it's like 2 silver or something like that for like a beer or something like that. And then I'll do up to a gold for, a shot of some like really rare whiskey or something like that. Is kind of how I go about doing it. Like I said, I don't know if that's helpful. And then you can just, if you're looking for ideas of what types of drinks or what types of meals would be there, you can just either Google medieval drinks, or I'll do D&D drinks or D&D meals and stuff like that, because a lot of people who are extremely creative, more creative than me, have already made lists like that. So rather than reinventing the wheel, I'll kind of do that and get some ideas, so people will have really good ideas about like, different types of, whiskeys that are, gnome in origin or whatever and stuff like that. So that's my method of going about it. Hopefully that kind of answers the question. I don't know. I feel like I just kind of rambled about stuff there. I don't know. I don't know if that was super duper helpful. Um, but you know, it's there. It's available. If you need me to explain anything more, please feel free to keep asking. I'm more than happy to try and answer more effectively. But getting back to our stuff here, I'm gonna stick with the pickaxe and the shovel, and I'm gonna have our barriers be just like some rocks that have fallen in the pathway, you know, of like, you know, maybe something that's like there's almost a tunnel that they're going through underneath something, so it's like climbing over would be less feasible than just like trying to dig your way through, right? So there's like maybe a short tunnel. I'm thinking, and like when I'm thinking tunnels going through foothills and stuff, I'm thinking about the time when I took a trip. My family took a trip out west, and we were at Yellowstone National Park, and we were driving through a lot of like the big hills and mountains and stuff, and you would occasionally come upon a passageway on the road while we were driving around. You'd occasionally come upon a passageway that was, you know, maybe like, you know, 50 meters long or whatever. Not super long, but long enough that like, you know, like, because there was a stretch of cliff or something like that where like it made more sense to kind of tunnel through rather than go around or over, right? And so they would dig out that tunnel there. And so if there was ever a cave in, it would make more sense for people to go in and like dig out part of that cave in than it would be to try and find an alternate path, because the path of least resistance was already that tunnel, you know. And so like that's kind of what I have in mind here for doing the pickaxe and the shovel. There's like a tunnel that is that like it just makes more sense to keep going through the tunnel, probably because there's some indication that the cave-in isn't like a mile long or anything like that. So that's why I'm thinking the pickaxe and the shovel will work, because I'm not actually going to have them tunnel under the mountains per se. There's just going to be passageways, and I think that's going to get the feel okay, as long as I remember to describe it properly. So that's the thought, and that's why I'm going to stick with those. And then with the Move Earth spell scroll, just because I think that'd be kind of a cool option for them to have. So let's see here. I want to look. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, got the hiccups a little bit. That's embarrassing. All right, let's see here. I wanted to. I pulled this up. Pulled this up here. I know. See, hiccup makes me think of How to Train Your Dragon. Every time now. Every time when I get hiccups, I just think of that. And thinking of How to Train Your Dragon immediately just makes me think of my favorite line from that movie. You just need to work on this. You just gestured to all of me. Like, that's just what I think of, because the amount of times that I humorously look at myself in the mirror and be like, you just need to work on this, and then gesture to all of myself. Like, that's just one of my things that I do, and it's like, it's one of my favorite lines from that movie. It's so hilarious. It cracks me up every time. It's absolutely a great series. It's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites. I'm a big fan. Always have been. Always have been. So looking at our map here, I almost want to just do our little half and half thing again. I think we can do that okay. As long as we collapse that gives us enough room to work with. So we're going to do an easy battle in this room. It's one of the earlier ones, and it has the boss key in it. So this one can be perfectly easy to get through. This one, the challenge for this one isn't going to be getting to it. It's going to be the battle that's there. So let me... Wait, hold on a second. Do we have... Okay, I'm going to... Dang it, I've put myself in a bit of a difficult situation. I guess we won't do the half and half thing. We'll just bounce between the windows. I think that's going to be the easiest way to do it. Plus, that's actually good. That gives us more real estate to actually look at and work on our maps a little bit. It's easier. I find that when you break it down into rooms like this and you're trying to decorate, it's actually kind of nice to be able to, you know, really zoom in so you can really place things in good spots anyway. So we'll just go back and forth. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Once we get an idea of what each room looks like, we don't really need to sit there and keep staring at it while we're writing. So, we're working on our second set here. This set of rooms is going to have a total of 2,000 experience points available to it, and I should probably just like make a unique video where I explain it and like have that be something on my YouTube channel. Like that's probably what I should do, honestly, is on my YouTube channel when I go through, rather than just always putting up the VODs, I should probably just work on trying to slowly make a little series of videos where I actually explain the stuff that I come back to all the time. So that way people can find it if they want to. But in a nutshell, this dungeon will have the intent of this dungeon is it's for level 2 players, and it's going to have enough experience available in it to bring 5 level 2 players up to level 3 if they go through and take the time to clear out every room. That's what the intent is. And so because there's 2 room sets, right? It's a level 2, so I do 2 sets of rooms. Just like how if there was a level 5 dungeon, I would have 5 sets of rooms. I like to do it that way, just so that way things get more and more big, epic, and grand as my players go. And so because there's the two sets of rooms, I like to tier it, so that way the first set is a lot easier than the second set, so they can have that first set to really enjoy their new powers at level 2, because they would have just gotten up to level 2 from level 1. They're excited about their new stuff. They want to flex their muscles a little bit. They're like, oh yeah, we're getting better at adventuring, and so I want to give them the chance to appreciate and enjoy that. So the first set only has 1,000 experience points available in it. The second set is going to have 2,000, because now is when we're going to kind of ratchet up the difficulty a bit and be like, okay, you've had your fun, but now let's demonstrate that you still have a long way to go, young Padawans. And so so this set of rooms is going to have 2,000 experience points available to it, and then we further break it down into difficulty levels of combat. So there's going to be the one boss combat, which is where they're going to have to fight Mama Griffin. There's going to be one difficult one medium, or 2 mediums, and 3 easies. So the 3 easy ones will have 145 experience points available, give or take. It's always give or take a few. Try to do a little more, so that way I don't accidentally shortchange them. If we're gonna have 145 experience points, we gotta think about how we want to divvy that up. We could just do 3 young griffins, right? 50 times 3, that gives us 150. So that's 5 extra experience points. So they will all get 1 extra experience point. We'll just do that. I try to make sure each battle is a little different than the others, even if they're the same difficulty level, just so that it doesn't feel quite as lazy. Yeah, let's copy and paste that. It's just the easiest way to do it there. Okay, so there's 3 young griffins there. So we'll go ahead and use up the one that requires the least amount of math to figure out how many enemies. Because I also try to make sure that I don't do more than 10 enemies. Because even when you get up to 10 enemies, just the action economy of having 10 bad guys attacking them, even if they're complete and utter wimps, that can really impact a battle significantly. So I really try to avoid. I never will, like, I'll basically never, unless I have a really good reason to, I will basically never do more than 10 enemies, and rarely will I really do more than 8 if I can help it, unless I really need to for the sake of offering up, stuff to do for the players, enough options. I really don't like doing that. I really don't like doing that. Like I say, it just messes with the action economy and it doesn't work. All right, so that's what's gonna be there. This one, let's see, and now we just gotta add a little bit of a description here. I always add a little paragraph, something that I can just read directly to my players and have it sound interesting. So that way, if I'm not in a very creative mode, if my headspace just isn't there whenever it is that I'm running this campaign for players, at the very least I can just read something that's there and it will offer that flavor text, that description of the environment for the players. So let's see here. As you come upon this first we'll just say, I don't want to say first because I'm already halfway through the dungeon, so it's really not the first one. As you come upon the leveled off plateau ahead of you, leveled plateau ahead of you, you find yourselves looking at, I'm kind of envisioning, I'm trying to imagine sort of what this looks like in the direction of that they're going. Because when we think about this, let me pull up our region map here. We haven't actually checked in with that a little bit, and maybe that'll help us sort of visualize things a little bit here. So here's our region map, right, where the whole campaign's taking place, and this particular dungeon is coming. Let me zoom out just a little bit more so we can kind of see. So this is coming at the tail end of a journey moving along this river, right? Because the journey is they're trying to get. I've titled it Runt Tribe, and I don't know if I'm going to change that name. I actually kind of like the name. I've grown fond of it. It's endearing in its own way. But they're basically trying to reach this tribe of runt outcast giants that are not known to be immediately violent. And so they're hoping that that's an accurate assessment, and that they can sort of start a discourse with these giants is what the goal is going to be. And so the idea of this dungeon is that this tribe is kind of, it's elevated from sea level, right? But it's not actually in the mountain peaks. It's kind of in the foothills of a mountain. And so the idea is they've just been following the river because there's a pathway. It's been a couple days they've been following the river. And then players get to this point where it's like from down here, or right around here at the river crossing, they can see, half a mile up the mountain or whatever, they can see the tribe. They can see like little bits of smoke coming from the campfires. And it's like, oh, that's the tribe. We need to get up there. But there's still some foothills along here that they need to get to. And so when I'm thinking about the direction, right, they're moving kind of northwest there. I like to try and keep directions and stuff as consistent as best I can. And so they're moving to the northwest. And so if we have our map here, if we think about going to that, or northeast, excuse me, not northwest. It's northeast. Northwest would be this corner. Northeast is over here. And so they're kind of moving in that direction, which means that if we think about our mountains being to like, the south here, when they're looking to that northeast and that northwest locations, when they're looking out there, they're actually looking down at a big valley, right? And so I kind of want to I haven't taken the time to describe that, and so I kind of want to just describe that for them and try and for those players that have a really active mind's eye, kind of like I do. I know not everyone can. It was one of the weirdest things for me to learn. Not everyone can actually visualize things, but I have a really active, like, picture mind. Like, I can really envision things. So I love to add descriptive imagery to stuff to help stimulate that for players. How long have I been streaming? Do you mean today or in general? Today it's been almost an hour. In general, I started streaming, it was towards the end of last winter. So, like 7 months-ish? I don't know. I'd have to look back and see. It hasn't been super long. Definitely less than a year. Like I say, today we're nearing on an hour. I'm not sure which one you're going for. But yeah, those are the two bits of how long I've been streaming. Those are the two answers. But yeah, I kind of want to add. I haven't taken the time to just describe the scenery here, but I feel like this is a good time halfway through the dungeon to sort of add that for them. Hey, Nova Grimm, how's it going? Glad to see you here. So as you come upon the level off plateau ahead, you find yourselves looking at a perfect view of the valley below you. As you look out over the side of the cliff to your north, you finally get a sense for how high you've come. Finally get a sense for how high you've climbed in elevation. A sense for how high you've as you see birds flying over the valley that are still below where you are. So I want them to, I kind of want to try and explain to them that it's like, okay, you've climbed up, you know, and you're kind of high off the ground already in these mountainous foothills, you know. It's like we're kind of almost getting onto the mountainside, but you know. Hey, Prince John, how's it going? Glad to see you here. Let's see here. The valley are still below. We're still below where you are. That's not the most eloquent way of describing it, but I think it gets it across. I might come back and edit that one later. We'll see. But I'm gonna press forward for now. Let's see here. Valley that are still below. Finally get a sense for how high you've climbed in elevations. You see the birds. Yet, as you look at the mountain to your south, you see how high the monstrous rock truly climbs. You can't help but feel very small in this moment. I'm just trying to offer some imagery for him. I don't know. I don't feel like I'm doing a very good job on this one, but it's like I always say about writing. Sometimes you just gotta splatter down whatever you can think of, and then you come back and edit it later to make it right. If you get too hung up trying to make it perfect the first time, then you'll just end up sitting there on that same thing for hours and hours, and you'll never make progress. So I'm gonna call it good enough for now. You can't help but feel very small in this moment. Your reverie, however, is soon interrupted as 3 young griffins come tearing out of the sky and land on the platform with you. It appears they didn't notice you at first as they tackle and nip at each other, but soon they freeze. They freeze and raise their guards as they see you standing there. Boom. And then, like I say, I've been doing, I've been trying to describe the interactions with the griffins and the beasts in this area pretty passively, in the sense of giving players the chance to not kill innocent creatures if they so choose. Some players will really appreciate the opportunity to try and just, like, you know, friendly, almost maybe even make friends, but at the very least just sort of amicably move past them, and that's fine. There'll be plenty of, this isn't the only opportunity that, you know, level 2 players will have to get experience in this campaign. We're going to add plenty of side quests and stuff so they can get plenty of extra experience and everything. So if they choose to not kill everything, there's that opportunity. But of course the battles are there if they decide they really want to just kind of murder hobo it up and go on a nice killing and skinning spree. Just sees you standing there in your American Apparel underwear. I only wear Spartan brand underwear personally. I'm not made of money, so oh boy. All right. Oh, is it a song? Okay, I didn't recognize that. I thought it was just an amusing anecdote, and I was just gonna roll with it. Excuse me. Practice my DMing. Just yes and that, and just roll with it. That's funny. That's funny. All right. Let's see here. So, we need to have the boss key here. That's the other thing we need to have. Boss key. Let's see here. Good DM. I try. I do my best. I will say too, as far as curveballs go, a random song lyric doesn't. That is far from the weirdest thing that has been thrown at me as a DM. Players will get very creative, and if you keep up practicing your yes and, you will find yourself just kind of rolling with some very bizarre things that get thrown at you. I'm trying to think if I've got off the top of my head a good anecdote for one of the more bizarre ones. don't know that I've got any ready off the top of my head. I don't know that my headspace is there right now. I'm not thinking about my past games or anything. But we've had some. I've had some good ones. I feel like as long as you stick with a campaign and you stick with it for long enough, everyone ends up with some real doozies of an amusing anecdote. People coming up with weird things to do. Anywho, so boss key. What I want to describe for this one. Let's see here. Let's see here. As you glance about the plateau, the palto. They're putting the pal back in palto. This plateau is my friend. It's a palto. Plateau. As you glance about the plateau, let's see. As you glance about the plateau, you notice a slight fluttering against the stone. Against the stone wall to your can I really say south? Hold on, what was the shape of it? Yeah, we can say south. That works. That works. Stone wall to your south. At first glance, it appears to be a discarded scrap of paper. But as you pick it up, you realize it is a much more valuable object than a piece of litter. This appears to be a spell scroll with the Move Earth spell imbued upon it. Boom! There we go. So, oh, sweet, you got an anecdote. When there was an animated chair that we had to fight, and one day one of my tail almost died from it. That's awesome. That's awesome. I hope they almost died from it because they were like, "Oh my God, I'm so tired and beat up. I need to sit down for a minute." And just when they thought they were finally gonna get a moment of respite from all of the combat, boom! They got beat up by a chair, betrayed by the very thing that was meant to save them. I hope that's how it went down. Either way, it's still amusing. Let's see here. So the key here. Key is a spell scroll. We'll just put it in plain language. Scroll of Move Earth. Can only be used once. So if players use it before getting to the boss room, they will have to find another way to get through. Think of like a chair walking wildly like a crab. Yeah, I can see it. That's actually kind of what I imagined, like this chair just like scuttling from side to side on its little legs, and then like it had like its like arms that, like, you know, especially if it was like an ornamented clawed chair, right? So like the chair can't really freely move its arms, but like there's like claws on it that are just like right, just like sitting there at the wrists, gyrating, trying to crap. That actually is exactly where my brain went. This actually does sound pretty funny. I mean, I'd be willing to die from that. That sounds like one of the better ways to go from a story standpoint. Not to like I don't want to be mauled by an animated chair. That sounds painful and horrible. But like if my character died that way, I'd feel sad for my character, but also I'd be like, you know what? If there's a way to go in a world of magic, I feel like that's one of the better options, because at least it's amusing. God forbid you die in like a super normal way in a magical world like D&D, right? It's like, you know, if like you just get run over by a horse carriage or something, it's like, oh geez, he died by hit and run. In a world of magical monstrosities, a freaking drunk driver took him out. And make a small village with no people. I think the players here are just mimics. Oh yeah. Do stuff like that, or like everything is animated armor or something like that, just walking around. That'd be interesting. New to D&D, never played one before. Kind of interested in playing. Only try to join, only back down because of circumstances. It can be tough. It can be tough to break in and find your first campaign when you're first trying to break into it. That can definitely be a challenging situation. Stick at it. Just keep trying to find a group. Keep trying to find a group. You'll find one eventually, as long as you're staying interested. You know, check in with local game shops and stuff like that if you have those available to you. If you can convince any friends or family members to just try it with you, a lot of times people will find that when they're just playing with their friends, they end up liking it more than they expect to, because it's not like there's not any right or wrong way, and so they'll just end up, you know, you'll end up, it's just another way for them to hang out with your friends and family and stuff. So a lot of times you can convince people who might not conventionally be interested to keep playing if you can just, you know, make it a fun thing to do when you're hanging out. And there are online options available, although I do maintain that, especially for a first campaign, that should be your last option, because I find that, like, there are plenty of online campaigns where you just play with people that you've only ever known online. Like, there are plenty of circumstances where it ends up being super fun and an amazing experience. But typically speaking, when you hear about all of, like, the horror stories that people have of games that just didn't go well because one player was a real problem player or whatever, you know, or the DM just wasn't really super invested in it or whatever it is, right? Usually that happens with online games, because, and I find a lot of it is because when you're playing online with strangers, right, you don't really have a sense for each other. You don't have a sense for who your other players are and what they like. You know, you're just trying to get to know them, and so you end up with a lot of wildly different personalities and interests and goals for the game, trying to, like, butt heads, right? And so that's kind of what happens. Whereas if it's with people that you already know in real life, right, like friends and family, then you have an understanding of kind of who they are, and you know you like spending time with them. So it becomes a lot easier to find that balance of a game that meets what everyone's interested in, because you already kind of have that rapport with them. So that's always my recommendation. Start trying to find real life, but if you just can't do that, then try online resources, because there are plenty of those. There's plenty of forums where you can find people looking for players and stuff like that, or people that are looking to start a game. So just keep sticking with it. Keep trying to find different people that are interested in playing. You'll find a game eventually, and I'm sure, and eventually you'll find that one magical group that it just, like, it clicks. So you click with them, and you just have a great time, and it just continues to be one of the best hobbies ever. So yeah, stick with it. Hopefully you can come back soon and have a fun story about a new session with a new group that you're absolutely in love with. So okay, so we've got kind of our idea of what's here. So, and we just gotta add a little bit of decoration here. Let's okay, I want to first off take off our snap tool here, and let's just go to our objects. As per usual, we can just add some stones and stuff here. Excuse me, goodness gracious, the hiccups are back. The hiccups are back. Boy, oh boy. Gosh, this guy's got the weirdest freaking stream. It's like hours talking about random stuff and not actually writing things, and then he has bodily functions on it. It's weird. What's wrong with him? I don't like that. I don't like that there. I'm taking that away. As long as it's not stoners, clueless people, and former prison without RPG players, you got your options. Yeah, I mean, that I think there are plenty of people that manage to avoid any of those. But you can certainly find groups that do have those, and that's why, and like I say, that's kind of why, like, the online groups can sometimes be a challenge, because a lot of times, you know, you just, like, if those are people that you don't like hanging out with, in real life, you've probably vetted them out of your social circle pretty well already. But online, you haven't really had the chance to vet those types of people out. You know, so, like, I guess that kind of really exemplifies why I always say, if you can, avoid online for your first game at least, so that way you can have a good experience. Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. Starting off with a one-shot is a really good way, and that can be a good way to draw in people that are on the fence or unsure about it. Like, if you have friends that are like, I don't know, that sounds pretty dorky, I don't know if I'd like it, right? If you can just convince them, be like, guys, just for me, let's just do one evening. Let's all hang out one evening. We'll get some pizza. right? We'll get some pizza. We'll try playing. If we don't like it, we'll turn it on. We'll put it away and we'll turn on a movie and we'll play video games or something. But just try it. Just try this one shot with me and just do one mansion. I bet you'll find that a lot of people will be like, okay, you know what? That actually wasn't so bad because it was just us sitting there fucking around. And people you know, will be more open to trying it that way. So hey, Aquarius, yeah, we are working on our dungeon. We kind of are bouncing between working on the map and working on and writing out details and stuff. But yeah, we're working on the map. You should see. Hold up. Now that we got someone who's demonstrating interest, I got to show. This is our first half of the map. We've already made some good progress on this dungeon here. Check it out. I'm quite pleased with this. Far Cry, like you can see how just adding in some details to each room, you know, drastically different from this barren hellscape to this lively, fun, mountainous environment. We've definitely been making progress. I'm using Dungeon Draft. That's the program that I'm using, and I choose to use this one because it has a lot of interactive options, right? You can add lighting effects, and with like doors and windows, it makes those interactive, so you can have them open and closed, so you can see through them and stuff like that. And so it's got a lot of ways to make a map interactive for an online or a virtual tabletop situation, and it exports them in a lot of different formats, particularly in a format that plays nice with the Foundry virtual tabletop, which is the virtual tabletop that I personally choose to use for my online games. So that's why I went with this one. There's a lot of different good map making programs that people will all talk about and sing the praises of because they're all really good. But yeah, I'm using Dungeon Draft, and that's why I choose to use that one. Yeah. Let's see here. I do need to get just like a little piece of paper here. Let me just search for paper. Papier. If I'm remembering my French at all. Un papier. Alright, there we go. Just put a little piece of paper. Check this out. Underneath. I'll just like tuck it right there. So that it's like there. Right? But they might not recognize it and see what it is, right? Because they gotta get an investigation check in there. Actually, no, I should probably make a note of that in here too. We'll say medium. I usually do a medium when it's like a scripted thing. Medium, unless I have a good reason to make it easier or hard. Medium investigation check. Boom. There we go. Oh, sweet. We got a story. Okay. First D&D character was an SMR, champion, fighter, folk hero. Okay, I dig it. Started a small game, and in like the second session, knowing the right way to roleplay, I kept saying my team and I to like 3 different people became the leader. Yeah, no, that's it always ends up being that way, that like one person ends up becoming the de facto leader, and it tends to be whoever accidentally acts like the leader the most during the first or second session. That's like 100% how it is. And so like that's how you end up with, I've had it happen so many times where like the one experienced player tries to make a character, like it'll be a group of mostly new people, but there's one experienced player, but they try to use that as an opportunity to like make a background character almost, so that they can let other people take the lead and like try playing the game because they're all new to it. It's their first time. And so they'll be there, but because they're the experienced player, they end up taking the lead. So they have like this like really, you know, like not all that, not intended to be charismatic character ending up being the leader. So other players are better. Oh, so it was the opposite for you. Okay, well, you know, sometimes the exact opposite happens. It all depends on the people. It all depends on the people that you have. Oh, what do you got? Sorry, there's no local shops that do private D&D campaigns. I never have IRL friends to start one. Well, I mean, so yeah, so then look into the online things. You know, I'm not trying to say that online is an unviable option. I just always, you know, it's easier if you can find other people. But if you don't, then yeah, look for some online forums. Try and find a group that like has some people. See if you can get the chance to just join a chat room with them for a little bit before playing. So that way you can just kind of get to know the vibe of the people and see if you click with them. You know, just keep searching. Just keep trying. Don't get discouraged. Right? It's real easy to get discouraged, and I totally get that. Like, that's just life in general. It's really easy to get discouraged in life in general. And it sounds like such a cliche, right? Everyone hates it, especially nowadays. Like it's like everyone hates that whole like, well, just try and be different or just try and be better. But to a certain degree, like that sometimes is the answer. Just don't get discouraged. Keep trying to find, and eventually you'll find a group. I'm confident that you will. There's so many people that love playing D&D, and it's like seeing such a resurgence in popularity these days. Like it's really a growing game all over again. Thanks to a lot of the podcasts and stuff that are out there that are showing how much fun the game can be. So just don't give up. Keep trying. Because it was like charismatic one, or dream was to be a hero, be a good role model. Because you're either shy or too rash. Yeah. There's always that too. There's always that one character that ends up, whether the player means for it to be or not. There's the one player that everyone always is shushing because they're too brash and they end up annoying everyone, and everyone that they encounter. And then eventually, what'll happen is everyone will Flanderize their characters, and whatever like they accidentally start doing in the first few sessions will end up being like their character's main approach to things. Which is fine, because then that's the dynamics that the group has. All right, let's see here. Let's do our next room here. So we need to do a difficult battle, and have a big pile of money for players to find. So there's our first room there. A little bland, but that's okay. We'll get there. So this is our next room. It's gonna have a difficult battle there. And this is kind of a fun one, right? Because we described there being a cliff there, and then let me see something. How is this gonna end up? Yeah, see, that's going to work out perfect. So we need a key. So it's almost like, with our map, it's almost like it's going to work out well, what way we're describing. Because we're kind of describing this as being a mountain that goes up, right? And this being area that goes down. And so if we go in here, it's almost perfect because then we can have a little tunnel that they'll need, like the pickaxe or whatever, to get to. And they can try and, and then this is kind of like a carved out little mini valley within this segment of the mountain or something like that. That's just going to end up being perfectly. Sometimes things just accidentally end up being perfect because all of this stuff was just like randomly assigned the way I did it. So, how about that? All right. But anyway, for 2, let's see here. So, whoops, wrong one. I need that. So we need a hard battle. So 430, I'm thinking 430 experience points. If these guys are worth 50 a pop, and those are 10 a pop, then I think, let's see here. See, now that's going to be, honestly, so if excuse me, if I want to avoid, so here's where I got to be careful, right? Because like I was talking about earlier, I don't want to make too many enemies in one environment, right? Or in one setting, in one battle. I don't want there to be too many enemies because if you just have too many numbers, it will end up messing with the action economy. And we want to be careful. We want to avoid that if we can. And so what I'm thinking we'll do is it'll end up being more experience points, but I think we'll throw just 9 of these guys at the players. It's a lot, but it's meant to be a pretty difficult battle, right? And so I'm okay with setting it up that way. And that'll keep us under our 10 enemy limit like I was talking about. So it'll be a challenging one, but that's the point of it, right? That's why we added it there. Like I say, we're getting to the later levels of this dungeon, and we want to now be challenging our players, making them feel the pressure a little bit. Not a very good dungeon if it feels easy the whole way through, right? Because that's what I would say. So, excuse me, man, what is going on with my throat? I apologize. It might just be the result of we're kind of having, at least in my area, we're kind of having our first very cold fall rainy day, which I love. I am so stoked about fall weather this year. I tend to go back and forth. Some years I'm really like, ugh, gosh, I don't want winter, but like this year I'm really stoked, at least about fall. Like I'm really excited about like the fall holidays coming up. I'm really excited about fall weather. I don't know. I'm into it this year. I'm really into it this year. It might just be because my general headspace. I'm in a pretty good place in my life right now, so it might just be that spilling over. But I'm really stoked about it. But the reason I bring it up is because my sinuses and my from the neck up tends to do this thing where when the weather gets cold, it's like, all right, we're just gonna get really phlegmy and plugged up for a couple months now. Hope you don't mind. Midwinter, we'll get things back together. But yeah, for the next couple months, you're gonna sound perpetually mildly ill. Even though I'm perfectly fine. It's like, okay, great. Thanks, sinuses. I appreciate that. I appreciate fall allergies. It's perfect. I love it. So maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. Now that we're finally getting that cold weather. What the hell is I working on? Oh, yeah. A difficult battle. All right. So let's see here. So we need to describe for this one. Okay, so I think with this one we can say, yeah, as you round the bend, right? Because it's almost like there's going to be like a cliff outcropping that they have to bend around there. So that's going to work out well. So, oops. Hard battle. It's a hard one. Oh, it's so hard. Sorry, I don't know where that came from. That was weird. Moving on. As you make your way around a narrow stretch of pathway that holds close to a rocky cliff jutting out from the not justing, it's jutting out from the hills. You find yourselves oops, no, I had it right the first time. You find yourselves face to face with a large congregation of adolescent. What is going on with my spelling today? I apologize. Of adolescent-looking griffins. Let's see here. They all appear. I don't know, what would like a big collection of 9 of them be doing? They all appear engrossed in various griffin activities. Some play fighting with one another, some snacking on a poor captured critter or another, and some just having a nap. As you come around the bend, however, all eyes are on you, and you can feel the tension rise in the air. And we'll just leave it at that. Again, leaving it kind of ambiguous so players can decide whether they want to try and find a peaceful way to get past these creatures, or if they want to just be like, ah, shit, here we go again, and just start beating up on all the griffins and single-handedly making them go extinct from this mountain range. That's up to the players. If they want that on their conscience, then they can just deal with it. All right. So let's just say 9 of these bad guys here. Let's copy and paste that there. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. All right, and then there's money. There's money. All right, so it's gonna be kind of grotesque, but I have an idea for this. It's not that the money is inside the griffins. I've thought about hiding things inside monsters, but I try to at least leave that for the true monstrosities, not the things that can be seen as beautiful, kind, or elegant, right? So that way, if players are gonna tauntaun butcher that crap, they can at least not have to feel that guilty about it, right? This is a D&D campaign. This isn't like Saw RPG. Oh, you gotta cut open your own stomach to get the key to unlock the fish bowl that's slowly drowning you nonsense. I imagine there's a campaign for that, or a tabletop RPG for that, but that is not what we are making today. So I'm gonna try and keep it not too grotesque, but maybe I should stop rambling about it and just actually write it, and people would know what the hell I'm talking about. This guy likes to just like rant about things pretty randomly. I don't understand. Alright, God, I'm turning into Jim Gaffigan here. Okay, money. Among the many piles of bones, there are a few that seem quite humanoid in size and shape, though the scattering of the bones makes it a challenge to know who or what the bones belonged to for sure. The theory of humanoid snacks for the griffins appears to be confirmed. However, when you find a few odd packs and coin purses among the bone piles. And then we're just going to give them a horde that's kind of like, we'll just say it's like, in total, you know, amidst all of the stuff, you find this, that, and the other thing. So let's just really quickly go ahead and go. I always go to Donjon. Not always. I actually had a different treasure generator that I preferred, but it appears to be not active anymore. It has been spitting out errors every time I try to go to visit it for a long time. I don't know if that's like my browser security stopping it, or if there's the site is actually down, but it's just easier to go to Donjon because it is here and I know it works. So that's just what I do, and because it's all just a random treasure generator anyway, so it's all largely inconsequential. Okay, so the way I do my treasure hordes here, we got treasure type, we're gonna do a horde, and then for our challenge rating, I basically will just do the challenge rating, set it to whatever the most difficult enemy the most difficult enemy that can be found within that room set is usually what I like to do. So there's going to be a nice hefty money horde here because this has I think it's a 3 challenge rating monster, the Griffin. 450. I don't even remember. Let me double check that to make sure. You'd think that that's the type of thing that I would have memorized, but you'd better think again if that's what you think. So Griffon, challenge rating 2. See, it's a good thing. It's a good thing I double checked that because I was wrong. So we'll set it to a challenge rating of 2 because even though this horde isn't a direct result of beating that boss, because beating that boss isn't going to necessarily have this treasure horde there, I still want to give them that level of treasure horde, that amount of money, so that they can go buy cool crap. So we're just going to put it here rather than elsewhere. And it'll be grand. It'll be perfect. Okay, and so let's see here. As far as things go, I usually will not put the scrolls or the potions there and instead just maybe pad with some extra money. Just because there are other places to do those things, but sometimes I will add them in there. It just kind of, really what it comes down to is it depends on my mood. And so, I don't know, I'm kind of in the mood. Maybe I will put them in there this time. Maybe I will. I don't know. Let's start with everything else and we'll see how I feel in 45 seconds. But doing some quick math here, as far as just straight up coins go, 70 gold plus 80 gold. I just always put it in gold. I never put like the denominations there because pretty much the entire economy that your players will interact in very, very quickly in the campaign will devolve to gold. Gold and maybe platinum. But if you just present it to them as gold, that's just the easiest way to do it. So then they don't have to try and sit there and do math and conversions and make change and all that crap. It's easier to keep it all in gold. So if we're gonna math that out a little bit here, so 70 gold plus 800 silver, that's 80 gold. So that's 150 plus another 16. We'll just round that up to 20 to make it easy. So 170. Yeah, 170 gold. So 170 gold. As far as like all of the gems and the artworks and stuff go, usually what I'll do is like I will just say this many gems worth this much a piece, and I'll just do it that way. Just because that I find with my players, I've talked about this before. I find with my players that as far as like inventory management, spell and crafting components and all that kind of stuff, it kind of ends up being the best balance to say like, okay, you need this many gems of this value, so that way they can try and do that, and they can kind of have to keep that stuff in mind and get excited about finding specific gems without it coming to the point of like, oh shoot, this specific spell needs Jasper and I don't have any of that. And it's like, some tables really like that level of detail, and to them I say more power to you, do it. The rules are there, the system is there to use it. But I find with my players in the games that I run, that ends up being a very exhausting distraction, and if I try to push that too much, we end up not worrying about the small item inventories at all, and so it ends up being kind of counterproductive. So if I strike that balance of like, okay, yeah, you need gems worth this much, then players will adhere to that and be like, oh yeah, we found, I have X many gems worth that much in my inventory, let's use those up. It just ends up being the better balance. Talk with your group, find what's best for you. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. So something like the artwork. So this is like got all the artwork and stuff. Rosewood chalice set with bloodstone, scroll of calligraphy, steel cup engraved with draconic runes, a bone orb inlaid with silver. So we're just gonna say, let's see, that's 1, 2, 3. A scroll of calligraphy. That's not even a spell scroll, is it? That's just a piece of artwork. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 pieces of art with 25 gold a pop. We'll just put it that way. We'll just phrase it that way, and players will appreciate that and have fun with it, I find. So 5x artwork worth 25 GP each. And then we do have that one potion there. We'll give them the potion. We'll give them the potion. I'm feeling myself as a generous god today. Potion of heroism. Sweet. Yeah, why not? Why not give them that? It's a one-time use thing. Might as well give it to them. It gives them fun tools to use. Because the truth of it is also, knowing my players and knowing most players out there, what'll end up happening is they will forget about it completely and like not use it for like 7 sessions, and then suddenly they'll be like, where did this come from? And then they'll be excited and use it the next chance they get. So 1x potion of heroism. So yeah, why not? We'll give it to them. I think that'll be fun. And if it's not fun, that's their fault, because it was in their possession, and it was the onus was on them to use it in a fun way. So haha, I'm absolved. I spend a lot of time blaming my players for crap, don't I? It's all in good nature. My players know I love them. They're fun. They're cool people. They're my friends. Anyway. Let's see. We'll put a couple stones and stuff around here. Just put like a few over here. And then just for the sake of like, for the interactivity of the map and everything. Oh shit, we're getting raid. Dice and Andy, thank you for the raid. Hello everyone, welcome. We're working on a sort of like cliffside dungeon here. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. It's always fun to get bombarded by people. The map making is going very well, Grez Wizard. Thank you. Yeah, we're having fun with it. I started off this session kind of talking about it. I was actually kind of proud because we're already halfway done with this dungeon. We've already done the first one, and what this dungeon is it's an open, kind of like an open air map of like mountainous foothills that players are going through. So it's not a dungeon in the conventional sense, but I'm structuring it as a dungeon for players to explore in a similar way. And I'm actually quite pleased with how it's coming out, because we've been finding some pretty good creative ways to add challenges that sort of feel dungeony without actually trying to make up a reason why there would be a locked door, on just like an open mountain plateau or something like that. So I'm actually quite pleased with how it's coming along so far. Not to toot my own horn, but beep beep, uh, to quote Dr. Cox. But yeah, it's coming along quite nicely. I'm just trying to, and like so the tool I use makes dungeons makes dungeons in a way that can be pretty interactive. Dang, I'm trying to not reuse the same asset too much here. You know, it makes maps pretty interactive with like blocking line of sight and stuff. So I'm trying to sort of artificially create, because I want this area to be, this particular region is kind of like a cliff, and they'll go walking around the cliff on the side of the mountain a little bit, and then they'll kind of be tunneling into it just a little bit to go through there. So I'm trying to kind of artificially create that there and pile that in there. And then we need to just add a whole bunch of bones and crap, because they found like a big old convent of griffins that they had to face. You guys were doing world building? Awesome. Awesome. That's yeah, we actually spent this campaign, we've done a lot of world building leading up to making the maps, and we're kind of at the stage now in making this campaign where we're adding in a lot of that, a lot of the dungeons and stuff that are like the sort of meat and potatoes of the campaign. Yeah, okay, so there's that. Now we got to get some bones here, because we said, let me just do bone. There we go. Oh, hell yeah, they got big piles of bones and crap. Okay, hold up. Here's what we're going to do. I want to do that under, just so that way we can make the bones feel like they're interspersed with all of the like stones and stuff. Because see, we can do that. Just have the bones kind of out with the stones, and then what we can do, oh, yikes, no, we don't want that. That's not quite right. And then we can put them over the top, right, and we can kind of do that. So that way it really feels layered. There we go. I dig that. I dig that. Add like some humanoid looking bones and stuff around. Right, you can do stuff kind of like that. Just, we're just trying to make this area look like a mess. Why do I keep going back to that one? We're not using that one. I refuse. Put that right there. And then maybe like one more pile of different bones and stuff here. So do we have any other skeletons? Is that all the bones? Okay, they must have some stuff that's like only monster bones. Oh yeah, we could get like a big monster bone. But actually, let me do skeleton. There we go. I guess there's a few other options too. Alright, so we can like, let's put these guys under here. Just so that way it's not perfectly obvious. It always looks a little too weird when you have like a Nosferatu style skeleton just like lying there on top of what's supposed to be a rugged pile, right? So if you kind of do it that way and throw them under, it makes it look a bit more natural, right? So we can do that, and then I'll put that guy like right over there, something like that. Just that way there's little hints of like human bones and stuff there. Shame it's a bit expensive at the moment. Yeah, it's not. Dungeon Draft isn't free. Dungeon Draft is not free. It is $20 to purchase it. So yeah, that is one of the pitfalls of it. But I just love using it so much, and I do use it so much that it ends up being that it's like a worthwhile investment for me to use, because I do have a game that I play that I run weekly with some of my friends online. And so I use this weekly, so it's definitely been paying off. So yeah, there we go. So there's some bone piles there. I kind of want to do. Yeah, it's a one-time purchase. One-time purchase. Let me just do straw here. What about hay? There we go. I kind of want to do this. Like hay's a little too like organized or something, but I kind of want there to be like little nests that some of them were there. Let's see here. Not really. I mean, I feel like the price for just about anything kind of depends on who it is and where they're at financially. So yeah, it's you know, all about the individual too. Some people have that kind of cash lying on, others don't. So it's all just a matter of where you're at. Yeah, if we throw some hay around in these areas, I want that still underneath here. That'll kind of make it feel almost like it's a nesting scenario. I actually really like the way that's looking there. Do some stuff like that there. Let's do a couple right there. And we can have a couple little piles there. That looks okay. Let's see, that looks okay, yeah. Boom, there we go. Alright, so yeah. That looks alright. That looks alright, because then once we scatter our actual griffins around during the battle in there, that'll start feeling very claustrophobic, which is I'm totally okay with. Boom. One day you own it. Yep, that's how it goes, yeah. You just kind of bide your time, and then bada bing, bada boom, you've got it. All right, let's see. And we need to add just a few little money pouches lying around. I need to make these smaller. I'm gonna scale this crap down to like half size here. Boom, there we go. That's looking more like a little coin purse there. So we'll just put those kind of there, so players can have some fun, kind of like, oh yeah, like they can just. I always like to these things are all discoverable just by like searching and doing their investigation checks and everything like that. But I like to try and add them into the map itself so that players can kind of have fun trying to like do a Where's Waldo of it. I find that gives my players some joy to do it that way. So yeah, there we go. That's looking pretty good. That's looking real good. I'm liking that. I'm liking that. I'm wondering though. I wonder if we can. Hold up, let me put that over top. Kind of funny if there were just like some. Wait, hold on, let me. Oh yeah, they do have some empty nests. Yeah, so we can just like add a couple other like nests there just to make it even more like that. As a sort of animation style. Yeah. It's I really like the balance of like animation versus like hand-drawn mappy type of like I don't know, like the style of animation that it has, I think is visually appealing. Like it's not distracting, but it adds a little something. And I think it helps that they do a good job of not making everything like super over the top brightly colored, is what I think is one of the keys to it, right? Because like if the hay was more yellow, you know, and like if they, you know, made blood stains even brighter, because like you can look it up here if we do blood. Wow, none of that is blood. What a strange search result. But yeah, see like the blood spatters, they're kind of that duller orange. So it does a really good job of not being super distracting. And I think that's one of the things that really makes the aesthetic look good. But that's good. That's good. I like that. I really like that. Yeah. I dig it. Okay, so now I'm looking at the time, and I kind of feel bad for you guys that just joined in. It was kind of poor timing because it's almost where I am at. It's almost 1:30, and that means it's time for me to take my short break because I'll be coming back and doing some video game streaming soon. So I wish you guys had. I wish the timing had been different, so you guys had come in when there was a bit more, so you could see more of what I'm working on. But that said, I am going to be streaming again tomorrow. So I try to stream for 2 hours. So whatever time it is right now for you, 2 hours ago I started. So if you wanted to come back, by all means, I will be streaming tomorrow. And I also really appreciate you guys stopping by today too. It's been a good stream. I've had fun with it. I made some progress on our map, which is good. I dig it. It's fun stuff. Also, if you like what I'm working on and want to be more involved, we've got a small community. I've got a Discord, and it's a small community, but it is kind of growing, where we will occasionally share different homebrew things we're all working on, and we can talk about it, share notes, and all that kind of stuff. So if you are interested in that, please you can find the link on my Twitch channel. Please feel free to sign up for that. We'll get you verified so you can join in the conversations there. I do also have a YouTube channel. It's a complete and utter mess, but I put up all my VODs, so if you want to just go back and see other stuff that I've been working on, you can feel free to go check out the YouTube channel. That's an option there. But yeah, other than that, like I say, I'm going to take like maybe a 15-minute break or something, just to rest my voice a little bit, and then I'll be back. So if you want to just chit-chat with me, if you think I'm interesting, then feel free to come back in like 15-20 minutes, and I'll be on streaming. We're working on Mass Effect 3 right now. I'm doing a run-through of that, so love to see you guys there. If you're just here for the D&D content and stuff, then by all means, go find some other streamers. There's plenty of D&D content out there, and I will not be offended if you are looking for more of that type of content, because there's a lot of really good creators and a lot of really good people out there doing their own streams and campaigns and all that kind of stuff. So regardless of what you choose, I appreciate you guys being here. I dig the conversations. I appreciate each and every one of you. And it's like, yeah, you guys are what make it really fun to be here. So yeah, if you're sticking around, I'll see you in like 15-20 minutes. Otherwise, maybe I'll see you tomorrow or next week or whatever. Oh my God, you guys, look, we got a bot. It's my opportunity to become famous. Never mind. Fuck you guys. I'm gonna become famous now. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'd never abandon you guys. I love you all too much. We'll block this bot and we'll be out of here. All right, I'll be back in like 15-20 minutes. Maybe I'll see you then, or maybe I'll see you later. Either way, take care of yourselves, and yeah, catch you later.